The September dust hung gold in the evening light when Emma saw them coming. Two figures on horseback, moving slow up the trail from the canyon. She was at the pump, filling the water trough, and she stopped with her hand still on the handle. Strangers didn't come this way by accident. Her ranch sat at the broken edge of the territory, where the grass gave up and the desert began. The town was 8 miles south. The Apache lands were everywhere else. She watched them approach. The horses looked half dead. One of the men sat easy in the saddle, hat tilted back. The other rode like he was listening to something she couldn't hear, his spine straight, his head turning slightly as if tracking sounds on the wind. Emma wiped her hands on her skirt and walked toward the gate, her boots crunching on the dry earth. She kept a rifle by the door, but something told her not to reach for it. Not yet. The shorter man pulled up first. He had a wide, sunburned face and the kind of smile that asked for trust before earning it. "Evening, ma'am," he called out. "Name's James Ridley. My friend and I are hoping you might spare some water for the horses. We can pay." Emma looked past him to the other man. He hadn't dismounted. He sat his horse like he'd grown there, and he was watching the horizon behind her, not her face. He was tall, taller than anyone she'd seen, with dark skin and darker hair that fell past his shoulders. No hat, no gun belt she could see. "Water's free," Emma said, "for the horses." James swung down, groaning a little. "Much obliged. We've been riding since dawn." The tall man finally looked at her. His eyes were the color of creekstone, gray and green together. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just looked at her with an intensity that made her feel like he'd already decided something about her, though she couldn't guess what. "That's Kai," James said, leading his horse toward the trough. "He doesn't talk much, but he's good people." Kai dismounted in one fluid motion and led his horse forward. The animal was trembling with exhaustion. Emma felt a spike of anger. "You rode them too hard," she said. "Wasn't a choice," James said, but there was regret in his voice. "We had to put distance between us and some folks who didn't care for our company." Emma should have told them to water the horses and move on. Instead, she heard herself say, "There's a barn. You can stable them for the night if you need to." James looked at Kai. Kai looked at the horizon again, then gave a single nod. "If you were this woman, living alone for years at the edge of everything, would you let two strangers stay the night on nothing but instinct?" Emma led them to the barn. It was solid, built by her husband before the fever took him. She'd kept it in good repair because keeping things whole was the only thing that made her feel like she wasn't disappearing. Kai moved through the space like he'd been there before, unsaddling his horse with quick, practiced movements. James kept talking, filling the quiet with stories about the trail, about a town they'd passed where the well had run dry, about a card game in Santa Fe. Emma found herself listening more to what Kai didn't say. He checked his horse's hooves, rubbed the animal down, forked hay into the stall. Every movement was precise, economical, like a man who'd learned not to waste anything, not even motion. "You live here alone?" James asked. 15 years, Emma said. "That's a long time." "It's quiet," James grinned. "Bet it is." Kai looked at her then, really looked, and Emma felt something shift in her chest. He saw her, not the way men in town saw her, as a problem or a curiosity. He saw her the way you'd see a tree that had weathered 100 storms and was still standing. She cleared her throat. "I'll bring some supper out." "You don't have to do that," James said. "I'm doing it anyway." She walked back to the house, aware of Kai's gaze on her back until she stepped inside and closed the door. Her hands were shaking. She stood in the kitchen, staring at them. It had been so long since anyone had looked at her like that, like she was real, like she mattered. She made beans and cornbread, more than she'd cooked in months. She brewed coffee, strong and bitter the way her husband used to like it. She told herself she was just being neighborly. She told herself it didn't mean anything. But when she carried the pot and plates out to the barn and found Kai sitting on a hay bale, his long fingers mending a broken bridle strap, She felt something crack open inside her, something she'd kept locked down for years. James took the food with gratitude that felt genuine. Kai accepted his plate with a nod. They ate in silence for a while, and Emma found she didn't mind it. The quiet between them wasn't empty. It was full of things unsaid, but not uncomfortable. "You fixed the latch on the stall door," Emma said to Kai. He glanced up. It was loose. His voice was low, rough from disuse. It did something to her hearing it. "Thank you," she said. He held her gaze for a moment, then went back to his food. James wiped his mouth. "This is the best meal we've had in 2 weeks. You're a fine cook, ma'am." "Emma?" she said. "My name is Emma." "Emma," James repeated like he was tasting it. "Pretty name." Kai said nothing, but she felt his attention on her like heat from a fire. They finished eating. Emma collected the plates. "You can sleep in the barn. There's blankets in the tack room." "We're grateful," James said. Emma nodded and turned to go. She'd almost reached the door when Kai spoke again. "You should bar the door tonight." She stopped. "Why?" "Just a feeling." Emma looked back at him. He was standing now, and in the lamplight he looked even taller, his shadow stretching long across the barn floor. There was something in his expression, a kind of watchfulness that made her pulse quicken. "Are you dangerous?" she asked. "Not to you," he said. It should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel safer than she had in years. She went back to the house and barred the door. That night she lay in bed and listened to the wind moving through the eaves. She thought about Kai's hands on the bridle strap, quick and sure. She thought about the way James smiled, easy and warm. She thought about how small her life had become, and how much she convinced herself that small was safe. She didn't sleep much. In the morning, she found Kai at the well, working the pump. He'd already filled the troughs and watered the kitchen garden. James was mucking out the stalls, singing something off-key and cheerful. Emma brought coffee. Kai took the cup from her, and their fingers brushed. The contact was brief, but it sent a shock through her that she felt in her spine. "You don't have to do my chores," she said. "I know," Kai said. "Then why are you?" He looked at her over the rim of the cup. "Because you're letting us stay." "One night," Emma said, though she wasn't sure why she felt the need to clarify. "One night," Kai agreed. But he didn't move to saddle his horse. James came out of the barn, wiping his hands on his pants. "Emma, you got a fence post leaning out by the north pasture. I can fix it if you've got tools." "You don't have to," she said again. "I know," James said, echoing Kai, "but I'm going to anyway." She showed him where the tools were. He set to work with the kind of easy competence that came from a lifetime of hard labor. Kai disappeared into the barn and came back with a saddle that had been gathering dust for years. He sat in the shade of the porch and began cleaning it, his long fingers working oil into the leather. Emma went inside to make bread. She told herself she was just being practical. They'd be gone by evening. She'd go back to her silence, her safety. But when she looked out the window and saw Kai on her porch, his head bent over his work, his hair falling forward to hide his face, she felt something she hadn't felt in so long she'd forgotten the name for it. Hunger, not for food, for something else, for touch, for presence, for the feeling of being part of something larger than her own small, careful life. She kneaded the dough harder than necessary, trying to work the feeling out of her hands. By midday, James had fixed the fence and rehung the gate that had been dragging. Kai had cleaned every piece of tack in the barn and sharpened the tools in the shed. They moved around her property like they belonged there, and Emma found herself imagining just for a moment what it would be like if they stayed. She fed them lunch on the porch, beans again, and the bread she'd made, and cold well water. They ate like hungry men, grateful for every bite. "You've done too much," Emma said. "I can't repay this." "Don't need repayment," James said. "Just glad to be useful." Kai said nothing, but when he looked at her, she felt seen again. Seen and measured and not found wanting. "Why are you really here?" Emma asked. "No one comes this way by accident." James and Kai exchanged a look. It was James who answered. "We're heading north, trying to stay ahead of some trouble." What kind of trouble? The railroad kind, James said. They don't like people who get in their way. Emma's stomach tightened. The railroad's been trying to buy my land for 2 years. I keep saying no. James set down his plate. Then you've got the same trouble we do. What did you do to them? Another look passed between the men. This time it was Kai who spoke. I was a scout, he said, for the cavalry, then for the railroad. They wanted me to lead them through Apache land, find a route for the rails. I did it for a while. Then I saw what they were doing to the people there, so I stopped. And they didn't like that, Emma said. No, Kai said, they didn't. They sent men after him, James said. I was one of them. Ranger work, they called it. But when I found him, I realized they'd lied about what he'd done. So I made a choice. You chose him over them, Emma said. James nodded. I chose the truth over a paycheck. Emma looked at Kai. You're Apache. Half, Kai said. My mother's people. My father was a trapper. He died when I was young. And the railroad wants you dead because you won't help them anymore. They want me dead because I know too much, Kai said. I know where their roots go. I know what they're planning. And I told the Apache. Emma felt a strange calm settle over her. They're going to come here, aren't they? If they're following you, they'll come here. Probably, Kai said. She should have been afraid. Instead, she felt something like relief. She'd been waiting for 15 years for the world to come for her. Now it was here, and she wasn't alone. Then you should stay, she said. Both of you, at least until you have a plan. James looked surprised. Emma, we can't put you in danger. I'm already in danger, Emma said. The railroad wants my land. They've already tried bribing me. They've tried threatening me. Next, they'll try taking it. If you're here, at least I won't be alone when they come. Kai was watching her with that steady, unblinking gaze. You don't know us, he said. I know enough, Emma said. I know you fixed my barn. I know you're running from people who want to hurt you for doing the right thing. I know that's more than most men would do. James smiled. You're a brave woman, Emma Caldwell. I'm a tired woman, Emma said, and I'm tired of being alone. The words hung in the air between them. She hadn't meant to say it, but now that she had, she couldn't take it back, and she didn't want to. Kai stood. He was so tall she had to tilt her head back to look at him. If we stay, he said, we'll earn our keep, and we'll protect you. I don't need protecting, Emma said, though they both knew it was a lie. Everyone needs protecting sometimes, Kai said, even the strong ones. Something in his voice told her he knew what it was like to be strong for too long, to hold everything together until you forgot how to let go. All right, Emma said, you can stay. And just like that, her life changed. The days fell into a rhythm. James worked the land with cheerful determination, singing while he repaired fences and cleared brush. Kai moved through the property like a shadow, fixing things she hadn't noticed were broken, appearing wherever he was needed, without being asked. Emma cooked for them. She mended their clothes. She sat on the porch in the evenings and listened to James tell stories, while Kai whittled pieces of wood into shapes she couldn't quite identify. She hadn't realized how hungry she'd been for company until she had it. The house felt alive again. The silence wasn't empty anymore. But there was something else, too. Something she couldn't name. It lived in the space between her and Kai, in the moments when their hands brushed passing a plate, in the way he watched her when he thought she wasn't looking. It lived in the way James smiled at her, warm and open, like she was someone worth smiling at. She was 43 years old. She'd buried a husband and a dream of children. She'd spent 15 years learning to be invisible. And now 2 men were looking at her like she was something precious, something worth protecting, something worth staying for. It terrified her. One evening, she was washing dishes when Kai came into the kitchen. He moved so quietly she didn't hear him until he was right behind her. Let me help, he said. She handed him a towel. They worked in silence, her washing, him drying. It should have been ordinary. Instead, it felt intimate, the 2 of them moving around each other in the small space, their bodies close but not touching. You're good at this, Emma said, just to break the silence. I've done it before, Kai said. You've lived in houses. Sometimes. He set a plate on the shelf. Not often. Where do you usually live? Wherever I am. Emma looked at him. His face was unreadable. That sounds lonely. It is, Kai said. The honesty of it caught her off guard. She'd expected him to deflect, to shrug it off. Instead, he'd given her the truth, simple and bare. Is that why you stayed? She asked. Because you were lonely. Kai turned to face her. They were close, closer than they'd been before. She could see the scars on his hands, the faint lines around his eyes. She could smell leather and wood smoke and something else, something that was just him. I stayed because you needed help, he said, and because I'm tired of running. What do you want instead? Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kai looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers were rough, but the touch was gentle. I don't know yet, he said. He left the kitchen and Emma stood there with her hands in the dishwater, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. That night, she lay in bed and let herself imagine what it would be like to be touched by him. Really touched, not just a brush of fingers, but his hands on her skin, his mouth on hers, his body against hers. She'd forgotten what it felt like to want someone. It was terrifying and exhilarating, and she didn't know what to do with it. The next day, James cut his hand on a piece of wire. It wasn't deep, but it bled freely, and Emma brought him inside to clean it. He sat at the kitchen table while she fetched water and cloth. You don't have to fuss, James said, but he was smiling. I'm not fussing, Emma said. I'm being practical. Infected wounds are a problem out here. She cleaned the cut carefully, her fingers steady. James watched her face. You're good at this, he said. I've had practice. She didn't say that her husband had died of fever, despite everything she'd done to save him. She didn't say that she'd learned to stitch wounds and set bones because there was no one else to do it. You've been alone a long time, James said quietly. Emma wrapped his hand with clean cloth. Yes. Does it get easier? She looked up at him. His eyes were kind. No, she said. You just get used to it. James reached up with his good hand and touched her cheek. It was a brief touch, almost questioning. You don't have to be used to it anymore, he said. Emma's breath caught. She should pull away. She should remind him that they were strangers, that this was temporary, that she didn't know how to be anything other than alone. But she didn't move. She let his hand rest against her face, warm and solid and real. James, she whispered. I know, he said. I know. He dropped his hand and stood. Thank you for patching me up. He left, and Emma sat at the table, shaking. That evening, Kai found her at the well. The sun was setting, painting the sky red and gold. She was just standing there, staring at the horizon. You all right? Kai asked. I don't know, Emma said honestly. Kai stood beside her. He didn't touch her, but she could feel the heat of him, the solid presence. What's wrong? I don't know how to do this, Emma said. Do what? She gestured helplessly. This, you, him. I spent 15 years convincing myself I didn't need anyone. And now you're both here, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Kai was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You don't have to do anything. Just be. It's not that simple. It is, Kai said. You're making it complicated. Emma laughed, a short, sharp sound. You're one to talk. I know, Kai said, and there was something almost like humor in his voice. But I'm right. She looked at him. The dying light caught in his eyes, turning them amber. What do you want from me? She asked. Nothing you're not willing to give, Kai said. And what if I don't know what I'm willing to give? Then we wait until you do. It was the kindest thing anyone had ever said to her. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. I'm not crying, she said. I know, Kai said. They stood there together as the sun finished setting and the stars began to appear. And Emma thought that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to have all the answers right now. Maybe it was enough to just stand here with this man beside her and let the night come. The The railroad men arrived 3 days later. Emma was in the garden when she heard the horses. 6 men, maybe 7, riding hard up the trail. She stood slowly, dirt on her hands, and watched them come. James appeared from the barn, a hammer in his hand. Kai materialized from somewhere, moving to stand between Emma and the approaching riders. The men pulled up at the gate. Their leader was a thick-shouldered man with a beard and mean eyes. Emma recognized him. His name was Garrett, and he worked for the railroad as an enforcer. "Mrs. Caldwell," Garrett said, his voice falsely pleasant, "we need to talk about your property." "I've told you before," Emma said. "It's not for sale." Garrett's eyes slid to Kai and James. "I see you've got help now. That's good. You're going to need it." "Are you threatening her?" James asked, his voice dangerously calm. Garrett smiled. "Just making conversation." One of the other men leaned forward in his saddle. Emma saw his eyes widen. "That's him," he said, pointing at Kai. "That's the Apache scout, the one they want." Garrett's smile widened. Well, well, this just got interesting." Kai said nothing. He stood perfectly still, his body loose, ready. "There's a price on your head," Garrett said to Kai. "Dead or alive, the railroad wants you bad." "Then they can come get me themselves," Kai said. "Oh, they will," Garrett said. "But in the meantime, I think I'll collect that bounty." He looked at Emma. "And we'll have a chat about that land too. 2 birds, 1 stone." Emma felt cold fear settle in her stomach. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. "Get off my property." Garrett laughed. "Or what, you'll sick your dogs on me?" He gestured at Kai and James. "These 2 can't protect you, not against all of us." "Maybe not," James said. "But we can sure as hell try." Garrett's hand moved toward his gun. Everything happened at once. Kai moved faster than Emma had ever seen anyone move. He had a knife in his hand, and he threw it. The blade buried itself in the ground between Garrett's horse's front hooves. The animal screamed and reared. Garrett fought to stay in the saddle. James stepped forward, the hammer still in his hand. "Next one doesn't miss," Kai said, his voice flat. Garrett got his horse under control. His face was red with rage. "You're going to regret that." "Probably," Kai said, "but not today." Garrett wheeled his horse around. "We'll be back," he said to Emma, "with more men. And next time, you won't be so lucky." They rode off, and Emma let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Her knees felt weak. She sat down hard on the ground. James and Kai were beside her instantly. "Are you hurt?" James asked. "No," Emma said. "Just scared." "Good," Kai said. "Scared keeps you alive." Emma looked up at him. "What are we going to do? They're going to come back. They're going to bring more men." "Then we'll be ready," Kai said. "How?" Emma asked. "There's 3 of us." James knelt in front of her. "Emma, we're not going to let them take your land, and we're not going to let them take Kai." "You can't fight the railroad," Emma said. "No one can." "Maybe not," James said, "but we can fight Garrett, and we can buy time." Emma shook her head. "Time for what?" Kai crouched beside her. "Time to make them regret coming after us." She looked between them. These 2 men, strangers a week ago, now ready to fight for her. It didn't make sense. But then, nothing about her life made sense anymore. "All right," she said. "What do we do?" They spent the next 2 days preparing. Kai showed them how to set traps around the property, simple things that would slow men down or make noise. James reinforced the doors and windows. Emma loaded every gun in the house and made sure there was ammunition within reach of every room. At night, they took turns keeping watch. Emma found she couldn't sleep anyway. She'd lie in bed, listening to the house settle, thinking about what was coming. On the 2nd night, she gave up on sleep and went outside. Kai was on watch, sitting on the porch steps. He looked up when she approached. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No," Emma said. She sat beside him. "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Why are you doing this? You could leave. You and James could ride north and let them have me. Let them have the land. Why risk your life for this?" Kai was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Because I'm tired of running, because you gave us shelter when you didn't have to, because the railroad has taken enough from everyone and I'm done letting them win. That's not a good enough reason to die, Emma said. Kai looked at her. What is? Emma didn't have an answer. Kai reached over and took her hand. His palm was warm, his grip firm. I'm not going to die, he said. Neither is James. Neither are you. We're going to fight and we're going to win. How can you be so sure? Because we have something they don't, Kai said. What's that? We're fighting for something that matters. Emma looked down at their joined hands. She turned hers over so their palms pressed together. I'm scared, she whispered. I know, Kai said. Me too. She looked up at him, surprised. You are? Yes, Kai said. I'm scared of losing this. Of losing you. Emma's heart stuttered. Kai. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. When his lips touched hers, it was gentle, almost hesitant, like he was asking permission even as he took it. Emma kissed him back. She reached up and touched his face, felt the roughness of his jaw, the heat of his skin. He made a low sound in his chest and deepened the kiss, his hand coming up to cradle her head. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Emma rested her forehead against his. What are we doing? She whispered. I don't know, Kai said. But I don't want to stop. Emma closed her eyes. I'm scared of this too. I know, Kai said again. He pressed a kiss to her temple. We don't have to figure it out tonight. They sat there together until the sky began to lighten. And when Emma finally went back inside, she felt different, like something in her had thawed. The railroad men came back the next afternoon. This time there were 12 of them. Garrett rode at the front, and he didn't bother with pleasantries. This is your last chance, he called from the gate. Sign over the land, hand over the scout, and we'll let you live. Emma stood on the porch, flanked by James and Kai. No, she said. Garrett nodded, like he'd expected that. Then we're coming in. Try it, James said. The first man through the gate triggered one of Kai's traps. A rope snapped up, catching his horse's legs. The animal went down, throwing its rider. The second man was more careful, but he rode into a patch of ground Kai had loosened. His horse stumbled, and he had to fight to keep his seat. Garrett cursed and dismounted. On foot, he ordered. Spread out. The men advanced. Emma's heart was pounding. James had a rifle. Kai had his knife and a gun he'd kept hidden. Emma had a shotgun, and her hands were surprisingly steady. The first man who reached the porch got James's rifle butt to the face. He went down hard. The second got Kai's knife in his shoulder. He screamed and fell back, but there were too many. They kept coming, and Emma knew they couldn't hold them off forever. Garrett made it to the porch. He grabbed for Emma. She swung the shotgun, catching him in the ribs. He grunted and backhanded her. She tasted blood. Then Kai was there. He hit Garrett so hard the man's head snapped back. They went down in a tangle, fists flying. James was fighting two men at once, holding his own, but barely. Emma saw one of the railroad men aiming a gun at Kai's back. She didn't think. She raised the shotgun and fired. The man went down. The sound of the shot echoed across the property. Everyone froze. Emma stood there, the gun still raised, and realized she'd just shot a man. She'd just killed someone. Garrett scrambled to his feet. His face was bloody. "You're going to hang for that," he spat. "No," a voice said from behind them. "She's not." Everyone turned. A group of riders was coming up the trail. Emma counted 8, then 10, then 12. They were Apache, and at their head was an older man with a face like carved stone. Kai stood slowly. He said something in a language Emma didn't understand. The older man replied. They spoke back and forth for a moment, then the older man looked at Garrett. "This land belongs to her," he said in perfect English. "The railroad has no claim. If you come back, we will know, and we will not be merciful." Garrett looked at the Apache riders. Then he looked at Emma, Kai, and James. His face was twisted with rage, but he was outnumbered and outmatched. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes," the older man said. "It is." Garrett and his men retreated. They left their wounded and rode hard back toward town. The Apache watched them go. Emma felt her legs go weak. James caught her before she fell. "I've got you," he said. Kai was talking to the older man. After a moment, he came back to Emma. "They're going to stay for a few days," he said. "Make sure the railroad doesn't come back." "Why?" Emma asked. "Why are they helping me?" Kai glanced at the older man. "He's my uncle. He says you gave me shelter when I needed it. And he says any woman who fights the railroad is worth protecting." Emma looked at the Apache riders. They were setting up camp near the barn, moving with practiced efficiency. She felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she called. Kai's uncle nodded. "You are welcome here," he said to Emma. "This land is yours. We will make sure it stays that way." Over the next few days, Emma learned what it meant to have allies. The Apache guarded her property. They brought news from town. Garrett and his men had left the territory, run off by the threat of Apache retribution. The railroad was reconsidering its plans for the route. Emma's land was safe, for now. On the night before the Apache left, Kai's uncle came to speak with her. They sat on the porch watching the stars. "My nephew talks about you," he said. Emma felt her cheeks heat. "Does he?" "He says you are strong. He says you remind him why we fight." Emma didn't know what to say to that. "He has been alone for a long time," Kai's uncle continued. "He forgets that he deserves to rest, to have a home." "I don't know if I can give him that," Emma said quietly. "Perhaps," the old man said. "But perhaps he does not need you to give it to him. Perhaps he only needs you to share it." He stood and left her alone with her thoughts. That night, Emma found Kai in the barn. He was brushing down his horse, and he looked up when she entered. "Hi," Emma said, feeling suddenly shy. "Hi," Kai said. She walked over to him. "Your uncle is a wise man." "He thinks so," Kai said, but there was affection in his voice. Emma took a breath. "He said you've been alone a long time." Kai set down the brush. "I have." "So have I," Emma said. "And I'm tired of it." Kai turned to face her fully. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying stay," Emma said. "Both of you, James and you, stay here. Help me run this ranch. Make it something more than just me waiting to die." Kai's expression softened. "Emma, I know it's crazy," Emma said. "I know we barely know each other, but I feel more alive with you here than I have in 15 years, and I don't want to go back to being alone." Kai reached out and pulled her close. She went willingly, pressing her face against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady. "I'll stay," Kai said, "for as long as you want me." "Forever," Emma whispered. Kai tilted her face up and kissed her. This kiss was different from the first. It was deeper, more certain. It tasted like promises and new beginnings. When they finally pulled apart, James was standing in the barn doorway. "Well," he said with a grin, "guess I don't need to ask if you meant both of us." Emma laughed. She reached out a hand to James, and he came to them, folding them both into an embrace that felt like coming home. "So we're doing this?" James asked. "The three of us?" "If you want to," Emma said. James looked at Kai. Kai looked at James. They seemed to have an entire conversation without words. Then they both looked at Emma. "We want to," James said. Emma felt joy rise in her chest, bright and warm. "Then we're doing this." They stood there together, the three of them, and Emma thought about how strange life was. A week ago she'd been alone. Now she had a family. It wasn't the family she'd imagined when she was young, but it was hers, and it was real, and it was enough. The Apache left the next morning. Kai's uncle gave Emma a necklace made of turquoise and silver. "For protection," he said. Emma thanked him. She stood with Kai and James and watched the riders disappear into the desert. "Well," James said after they were gone, "what now?" Emma looked at her ranch. At the barn Kai had fixed. At the fences James had mended. At the garden they'd all tended together. "Now we build," she said. "Together." And they did. The days turned into weeks. The weeks turned into months. Winter came, and they weathered it together, the three of them in the small house, keeping each other warm. Spring arrived, and they planted a garden twice the size of the old one. Emma learned Kai's silences, the way he communicated with looks and small gestures. She learned James's stories, how he used words to fill the spaces where his heart hurt. She learned how to be part of something bigger than herself. They learned her too. They learned that she woke before dawn and liked her coffee bitter. They learned that she cried sometimes for no reason she could name, and that she just needed to be held until it passed. They learned that she was stronger than she looked and braver than she believed. The town talked, of course. 3 people living on one ranch, unmarried, scandalous. But Emma found she didn't care. Let them talk. She had everything she needed right here. One evening in late spring, they sat on the porch together, watching the sun set. Emma was between them, Kai on one side, James on the other. She felt Kai's hand in hers, James's arm around her shoulders. "I never thought I'd have this," Emma said softly. "Have what?" James asked. "This," Emma said, gesturing at everything. "You, both of you, a life that feels full." Kai squeezed her hand. "You deserve it." "So do you," Emma said. She looked at both of them. "Both of you." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from gold to pink to deep purple. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the scent of sage and rain. Emma closed her eyes and breathed it in. This life, this moment, these men who had chosen to stay, who had chosen her, who had helped her remember that she was more than her loneliness, more than her fear. She was Emma Caldwell. She was 43 years old. She owned her own land. She had 2 men who loved her and a future that stretched out before her like an open road. She was, finally, home. If this story touched something in you, know that there are many more nights beneath these western skies, many more tales of women who found strength they didn't know they had, and love they thought had passed them by. Stay close, and perhaps you'll hear them.